Your brand. You got it right. You start with how do you brand yourself? So you got to find your authentic self. What is your story? We all have a story. We all have a story to tell. And you got to dig into it. You got to practice it. It's iteration. I call it developing. So you got to develop your story and just keep going, keep practicing, keep trying again and again.
Joining us today is Craig, CEO and founder of DiversyFund, a fintech pioneer making private investment accessible to everyone. With 25 plus years in real estate and finance, Craig has raised over 1 billion US dollars in capital and empowered thousands of everyday investors to grow their wealth. His passion for advancing financial literacy and creating wealth building opportunities makes him the perfect guest for today's episode. Welcome to the show, Craig. How are you
Thanks for
doing?
having me. Yeah, thanks for
So,
having me. Appreciate it. Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me on this conversation for, soulful conversation about, wealth and how to become even much more financially literate. But before we go into all of the questions I have prepared to ask you to have this conversation, you agreed before we start recording to go through three different questions, wildcard questions, just to get to know you better, just to allow the guests the listeners out there to get to know you better. So are you ready to answer the first question that we have?
Fire away.
All right. So
I'm game for it.
you're going for it. So I just picked the card randomly from a stack of cards here. This is the icebreakers card. Oh, okay. And the question is, who do you love most in life?
You can't say that. It can't be one more than the other. My family. So use a family. I got 4 women in my life. I got my wife and 3 daughters. So I'm saying my family.
My family. Oh,
My
that's a smart
family. One
answer.
word, right?
Everyone, yeah, equally loved. That's good. So next question, confessions. It says, okay, I've pulled this card before. That's why it sounds familiar to me. It's what excuses do you make that hold you back?
Excuses is you'll catch yourself saying, hey, someone made that mistake. I like to say, I am accountable for everything. It's a tough thing to do, but I run organizations, and when someone makes a mistake, it's my mistake. So instead of me saying it's their mistake, sometimes I say that. I take accountability for everything that happens in my organization.
That's good. Yeah. Being responsible and accountable to yourself. Yeah. And for your actions. Awesome. Last card. Okay. What is an apology you never got to give?
Gee, I never got to give.
Yeah.
Well, deep, this probably goes, I'm the oldest child, so I'd go to my younger brother, of course, apologize from him for doing all the things that older brothers do to younger brothers. I think it's just there's a written book that they don't get that you get as an older brother, but I got to apologize to him for all the times I've made him feel a little insignificant.
That's sweet. Yeah. Thanks so much for answering those questions. I think we've gotten to know you a little bit better from these 30 questions. Like, you're a family person, and of course, you are a family person because you apologize to your brother for all the things that you did. And of course, thank you so much. So, I'd like to learn even much more about your, personal journey so far. Um, what inspired you to revolutionize investment across oh no sorry what inspired you to revolutionize investment assets for everyday Americans, and was there like a personal experience or moment that sparked this journey for you?
Yeah, it started in childhood, growing up. Grew up on the East Coast and Northeast U.S. and came from a working class background. Lived in a very affluent area. My parents, school teacher in retail. My dad, I just found out. He never tells me anything. I'm in my 50s. He only made maximum I've ever made in a year was $65,000. So combined income growing up in the 80s wasn't that much money for my parents. And they gave me good education, good schools, and slowly I began to learn that we weren't as wealthy as the other families. They go country clubs, ski trips, and saw the frustration with my parents. Worked very hard, long hours, but they couldn't really have that mobility and have a better life as everyone else around us. And as I became aware, you're just a kid running around and you're just, you're going to schools with these kids and you start figuring it out, but really seeing that frustration that my family had and my father had, especially growing up. And I made a promise to myself I'm going to take control of my life and I'm going to build wealth for myself. But dedicated my life to it at an early age, was a young entrepreneur, did a lot of odd jobs, always had a plan in place to do that. Went to school in the Rocky Mountains, Colorado, then moved out eventually to California with the intent to always learn how to build wealth and surround myself with people who knew how to do that, and put myself in a position to learn from them through osmosis and just building those relationships. That happened when I was 22, 23 years old. I found a couple of mentors that took me in. They like the intangibles. I always hear that always do the best that no matter what you're doing, you may meet people. And so I really took that to heart. No matter what I do, I try to be the best at it. A little bit's being competitive, but it was kind of, was my parents were hard working, was ingrained in me, always be hardworking. They noticed me. They noticed that, hey, I was a guy they liked, and they saw something in me, and they started teaching me what they knew that I shouldn't have learned until I was in my 40s. I'm in my early 20s. And then I started kind of learning how the game was played, and they taught me the tricks, which again, I shouldn't have known how it was at an early age. They opened the door for me. And they just opened the door a little bit. You got to kind of go through the door and kind of dive into it. And then I did that, and I dedicated my life to it. And then I built that up, and I was always serving wealthy people, institutions, high net worth individuals, and they operate a certain way is a good word to say it. So, and like I like to say is, hey, you have a turkey bone, you're going around to share it. Well, they'll take like 90% of the meat off the turkey bone and give you a little bit left, just enough to feed you, just enough so you make just enough to come back to them again. And it wasn't really rewarding. It was more about money, 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 how much I could make again and again. What's in it for me? Again, again, again. It was always a one-way street. Then I saw an opportunity with some of the regulations that got passed to the Jobs Act, which is a byproduct of the Great Recession, opening up certain investment opportunities to the general public in the US. And again, that door kind of cracked a little bit, and I went all the way in, busted it open. I said, I got to do this. This is something that I've trained to do. It connects with me emotionally at a level of through my childhood. And so now I get to serve people that are underprivileged, like myself and my family, and I can get these techniques that I learned over the years, and I can get back to it. And at that point in time, I was always on the cutting edge with technology used. And so with technology increasing, I was like, okay, I can leverage technology to do this, because everything was kind of set up perfectly. This new regulation happened, social media's taken off, and technology's kind of growing. Uh, Technology's growing crazy today, right?
That's
And
true.
this is back
Yeah.
in 2013. So 2014, I developed the DBA DiversyFund and leaned into it, and created this monstrosity of a company. We got about 900,000 people in our community, 30,000 people have invested in our platform. Had to build out the technology to support them. Had to learn about banking and payment processing, all that stuff, investments, working with regulators and how that works. Yeah, I like how the regulators tell you could do this and make it so, I use the word friction, but we use the real word expensive, which is friction, to really operate this, because they have all these little nuances there that it could just cost money to pay the top attorneys and top people in the field to make sure you're staying compliant with the latest and greatest regulatory changes. And they change stuff just all the time.
All time.
When it's a new space, no one really knows what's going on. Everyone's like they're an expert, but they're only an expert. How are you an expert when something's new, right? So everyone's kind of guessing at the end of the day. So kind of going
Yeah.
through that, and here we are today. It's 2025. Got a great foundation set. We're thriving as a company. We're serving people, and we're building out to our next stage of growth. So we're very blessed that we have this opportunity. We're still around, that we've made it. Of course, in those last 4 years, 5 years, there's been tremendous amount of changes globally and in the US, particularly with, you had the pandemic coming out of that. We had inflation, cultures have changed. We have a new administration going in now. So a lot has happening to affect that. So things are always thrown at you. That's not an excuse. That is something that it takes if you are a business person, entrepreneur with a new idea. Those are the things you have to figure out, as things change all the time. That's adversity. And how do you adapt to those? And how do you win at the end of the day? Winning is just being in business, I think, at the end of the day. We're almost on year 9 here. And how do you kind of build a business to last at the end of the day, overcoming everything that's thrown at you? And here we are, 2025, new administration just started. So we have no idea what that is. You ask 2 people, you get 2 different answers, and one guy's going to be right, one person's going to be wrong. They're going to go around, see, I told you so, but it's 50-50 what's going to happen. So I
Happen.
always
Yeah.
laugh at that. Hindsight's a great thing, but we're all kind of seeing what's up. Some of the things that you probably could have saw, I thought, going in, was in the election, was pretty much, I didn't know it was going to be that big of a landslide. I was a little shocked. I'm insulated in a very democratic state, so maybe that's the reason the news wasn't pumped in. But I would have eventually, like, I held on to my crypto. I didn't sell any of that stuff. So when it went up, I anticipated it to happen with this administration. And that's some of the things you guess, right? Like maybe I buy a bunch right before the election or like within 30 days because you know it's going to spike because if that person's communicating through social media is the big way that they're going to do this stuff. And there's been fascinating stuff. Like nowadays, you go on Joe Rogan's podcast instead of going on the local news because he's got a million listeners, right? So if you go
Listeners,
on
yeah, yeah,
and his listeners match who you are, so you're going to get them to turn out more. The way the world shifts, you gotta that's the game, and you gotta adapt accordingly. So I thought that was fascinating to watch how this election was done a little differently, where you have one guy, they're both old, right? At the end of the day, but one guy goes on the podcast, the other guy, the other guy we already know, well, it's a woman because he was just kind of doing more traditional ways. So it's fascinating to see how some people adapt and some people try to do the same thing, and the result wasn't there, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. And thanks so much for talking about that. Also, tracking back a little bit, talking about the global changes and how it affects business and how you have to adapt to that and be diverse, basically. Because I would love to really know. It's raising over 1 billion US dollars and doing everything that you've done. You must have experienced a lot of challenges which you've touched on already. But can you share the biggest challenge you faced in this journey and how it shaped your approach to capital raising?
I mean, it was like the early days. I think one of the bigger challenges is one of my mentors wanted me to work for a local hedge fund guy, and the guy was choosing between me and somebody else, and he went with an attorney instead of me. And my mentor was like, recommend to him, hey, go with Craig. He's got all the intangibles. Here we are today. There's two different. I don't even know what the other guy does. He's not even in business. But that was a challenge because I was being spoon fed like a business because this guy was a guy who created hedge funds. So he was like the grandfather of everyone who had all these local hedge funds. And so you went to work for him, then you start your own. It's a clear path, and he didn't accept me, and so I kind of had to do it my own without a mentor to build it out. So that was something that was early in my early 20s. I was young, right? I had the intangibles. I didn't have the resume. I didn't have like the guy was in his 40s and I was 25, right? So he chose the 40-year-old who had the law degree, whereas the 25-year-old with the intangibles, and he went with the 40-year-old. So that was a challenge for me because I had to kind of go and just kind of learn on my own, and I had to do that just by kind of just doing and failing again and again. And that kind of lit a fire in me. It's like, okay, I love that because when someone tells me no, it just gets me going. And then I had to like lean in, and I just went, and that really lit the fire in me to do it on my own. So that was a major challenge early on.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. There are some things you experience in life that that pivots you in a different direction or gives you a little bit of more fire to run with. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and you've worked with over 35,000 investors and built growing personal brand, or you're still growing that personal brand. How do you personally define success with everything you've experienced? How do you define success? Has that definition evolved over the years? Like, your definition of success 10 years ago in 2013 and your definition of success right now, has it changed or is it still the same?
I have a quote, and the quote, and I can bring it up here on the screen next time I'll read it because I don't have it memorized. It's the Emerson quote, and I always stand by this same thing. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people, in affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics, endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate the beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. And that's Ralph Waldo Emerson. So I stick by that one. That's been the same for 30 years.
Okay, that's deep. Yeah. Touching people's life, creating great impact in the world, your generation. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's good. Yeah. And as a serial entrepreneur that you are, how do you stay grounded? How do you stay authentic to yourself in this world that is, driven by high stakes and fast results? How do you do it? How do you stay true to who you
I
are?
mean, it's a great example. So I'm like last night leaving the office. I'm usually the last one out, sometimes first one in, right? And so last night leaving the office, I walk by an area of the kitchen we have here at the office, and I see the dishes being dirty and stuff. So I go in and I clean them up. I put the dishwasher on. I want my employees to come into a work environment where it's clean, it's not messy. So it kind of grounds me and like, hey, I'm gonna do the little things. If I see a piece of trash on the ground and learn that from a mentor, I'm going to pick it up because I care about that. So that's what I do. And then of course I go home. My wife makes me do all these, throw out the trash and all that stuff too. So she humbles me all the time with that stuff. But more for the work environment is I'll do the little things around here. Nothing's too small for me to do. Whatever it is that, and that grounds me. That keeps me connected. I'm not too good to take out the trash. I'm not too good to do the dishes. I'm not too good to pick garbage off the ground. It keeps me connected.
Oh, that's good. That's one more thing I like about you, like being grounded, being connected, and you're not feeling high up there, but yeah. That's seven spirit. One other thing I like about you is basically from what you do, basically empowering others out there, especially with your course. Your innovative course aims at teaching entrepreneurs how to fund their ventures. So from that, I personally would like to get one piece of advice from you that I use, for example, to start my own capital raising journey. Like, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to someone like me that is just starting on my capital raising journey?
I mean, there's kind of a few things. This is a great question. I was like, hey, the one piece of advice. It's just really, I think it starts with yourself. Just you have to you're kind of in your head at times. Have the confidence in yourself. People are buying you, not your product. Understand that they're buying you, not your product. Now we could branch that off into a lot of conversations. When you're pitching, it's about you. They're going to ask you questions, right? You develop the product. You're the one answering the questions. You're the one with the plan. You're the one who's going to execute the vision. Buying from you at the end of the day. I see that again and again. People leading with a deck, people leading with some tech, people leading with like the total addressable market, the numbers. At the end of the day, they're buying from you.
Well, how do I make myself marketable then? Like when I know people are buying from me, how do I make myself attractive for the market? So they see me, they see my brand and know, yes, that is the brand I want to go for.
Yeah. Your brand, you got it right. You start with how do you brand yourself? So you got to find your authentic self. What is your story? We all have a story. We all have a story to tell. And you got to dig into it. You got to practice it. It's iteration. I call it developing. So you got to develop your story and just keep going, keep practicing, keep trying again and again. I was blessed recently and I was talking to someone. I was trying to find a coach to help me out with some public speaking. I went around, it was just hilarious because this guy was like, okay, I was all ready to sign up with this one guy, and then he sent this person off, his assistant, what's your credit card? So I had my assistant call, well, what's your process? I was ready to pay. It was closed, right? I'm about to sign up. And the guy wouldn't give me a process. I'm like, well, I need to know a process. Like, this is an hour. Wait, how does this work, right? It's not like, hey, I know it's not just you. I just don't want to go be all over the place. I want some structure because I'm a busy guy. I need structure. And then he goes, texts me, oh, fine, I don't want to do it with you. And he gives me this guy's name. Little did I know the guy he gave me wasn't his personal connection. It was just a guy who's well known and he's an author and he used to do 200 public speaking events a year. And he uh, did stuff with Tony Robbins. He's done some influencers. So I call him up thinking these guys know each other. And next thing I know, the guy he's so good. He sold me to pay for a $6,000 package. And the next week I'm at his house in a private little get together with 10 of us learning how to public speak and practicing that stuff. And he brought out of how to tell a story. Public speaking is about storytelling, not memorization. And I'm like going like the third day you're doing a 20-minute presentation. So the night before I got my notes, I'm, hotel room, oh, it's just gonna be horrible.
Yeah.
I'm nervous, right? All of a sudden, like I was like, I'll go first, right? Just get out of the way. That's how I am. I was like, I'd rather go first than that momentum in your room with strangers. He taps me on the shoulder, Craig, and goes, relax, take away your paper, get it out of your head, tell me a story. And then all of a sudden I kind of like dug into something and I was able to do it and it just all flowed out. And that whole weekend was 3 intensive days. I learned how to apply science to storytelling. And I found out that that was something that I was naturally good at. And then I've been practicing ever since. And so there is a way to do it. Read a book, and that's the learning part, but developing it is the practice. Keep practicing it, and then it just happens. The magic happens. So I would really recommend him. His name's Rene Rodriguez. He's got some books called Amplify Methodology. Look into it. It's fantastic. It was a life changer for myself. It could be a way for you to pull that story out of you. So then when you're presenting stuff, you're showing your authentic self to the people who you want to raise capital.
I like that. That's been coming to me over and over again. The power of your story. I mean, using your story, getting to know, getting connected to your true self, and bringing out that story out of you to sell your market, to sell your brand, or to make yourself marketable. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's good.
It's a a process, but it's achievable. It's doable for everybody. The tools are out there.
Yeah. So I would like us to look into the future a little bit and also tap into your vision for the future. And I would like to ask, like, when you think about future of investing, for example, like what excites you the most, and what role do you see yourself playing in shaping that future?
I mean, first one that comes to mind because I'm investing my girls. I want them. We're talking about, hey, maybe taking over daddy's business.
Oh,
So my
nice.
oldest one is contemplating going. She's a junior and she's got great grades. She's got like a 4.2. She's in club. She's a president of the Polynesian club in town. She started her first Polynesian club at her high school. My wife's Polynesian, so she's did that before, and she's all do local events and stuff. And we started talking about how I had talked to her, it's like, what do you want to do? And she's talking about this stuff, but she really wants to make money. It's like, well, then why don't you learn from me? And so, yeah, we're starting to talk and learn about entrepreneurship and stuff. So that's where I always start with my family. And then for me is really kind of being able to, I'm doing it right now with really focusing on my personal brand so I can run multiple companies. My brand is really sponsoring multiple companies. I have my major company, diversifund.com. I'm launching some course curriculum, some courses through another company I just started. I have a couple more on the horizon. I'd like to do some stuff in the health and fitness industry. I have a few ideas where that's going. For me, myself personally, I'm an advisor in a lot of groups, so I see a lot of opportunities and new products out there where people have great ideas or good products, but they don't have the business acumen or aptitude to really take it to the next level. Also, have some connections in the private equity world too, as well. So I see some businesses that are out there. I kind of stay in touch with that to see what one may fit under my I call it umbrella because some could support each other. So that's one of my on my to-do list this year. If I could buy one or two businesses that can be part of my overall businesses as well. It's just a part that fits right in right away. So I know when people are buying multiple businesses, some people maybe buy whatever it is, but you could like, hey, maybe I buy an HR company, or maybe I buy a traditional business that I could plug in to my current business to help amplify, not just only make the business more efficient, but increase the valuation of that business by doing it. You see that a lot with people adding to the portfolio. So that's something I'm looking at where, probably 1 or 2 years, probably accomplish that stuff.
Well, that's good. Diversifying, like, expanding your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm loving this, but I would love to track back a little bit because earlier you talked about, you being almost the first person to come and last person to leave. And on your way out in the kitchen, cleaned up. So I was just reflecting on that kind of leadership. And you've been, the CEO of your company, you've been a leader, you lead teams, you organize courses, you're a busy man. I would just like to tap into the biggest lessons that you've learned as a leader. Like, what is the biggest lesson in leadership that you've learned so far?
Yeah. It's like this pendulum, like it's like 1 second it's this, 1 second it's this, and being authentic is what I've learned. I think the most important thing I've learned in this more later in life, a lot of it's the market, but I've learned recently is the biggest lesson I learned is be who I am, and then surround myself with people who are like me. When there are people who are like you, it's just smooth. You just talk, and it's just easy. And they think the same way you do. The conversations flow. You're just talking like we're talking right here. When people aren't like you and receive information differently, it's like, and you got to think, and you got to do it. And there's all these books they train you in how to talk to people a different way, and you learn how to adapt your style to that. But if you got people who are just like you can just be yourself. Look at that energy. It's just easy to do. Whereas you surround yourself, everyone's like, oh, I need all these different pieces. Yeah, you do, but you really have to put the work in to recruit the people like yourself. So I'll go back to personal brands. If you got a good brand and people see your brand, hey, that you might attract those people to you. You will attract those people to you. I got a little bit more to go. We go dive deeper if you want to ask a question with this, what happens, but you do attract those people, and that's the biggest thing I learned is with leadership is bringing people in who are much like myself makes things a lot easier to do.
Yeah, oh, nice. For someone out there, for a leader out there, or a future leader, entrepreneur out there, or investor also, and let's listen to you, Craig, and as saying you've achieved so much and you've done so much to get to where you are right now. Just as a means of motivation for that person, can you like share a moment of failure that you've experienced in the past and how that failure changed your life, the lessons you learned from that failure to become who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, tons of failures. Big ones, small ones, daily ones still happening. Some things, bad investments, wrong investors, bad business plans. Not no some of it, I think when I'm younger, being a little naive was a good thing because I kept going forward again and again. Yeah, not doing things. I think some of the things what I look at, like when you make a decision, right? And there's a good decision, a bad decision, but the worst decision is no decision. So it's like when you have information, you're not making a decision. You chose not to make a decision. When you're not making a decision, you're not learning. So it's not like, okay, that's the wrong decision. Well, it's still a decision, right? So I'm taking the decision. I'm going to learn. If it's a good one, great. So then again, I can make that same decision. So this is a bad one. I'm not going to do that one again, right? And if I don't do anything, I chose not to do it. So I'm not learning anything at the end of the day. So what happens there? There's consequences for not making a decision. So for me, it's kind of like digging into that. Like when I'm building organizations, I want the people around me to make decisions, and leaning at those conversations and say, hey, who's making the decision here? And if they're supposed to make it, I have to hold them accountable. If they can't make the decision, I step in and make the decision. Of course, that's not an organization I am trying to build. I want people to make decisions, but then in some cases, usually a high level problems, the CEO and owner usually does those, but building that type of culture around the organization. And then, if someone's not making the decision they're supposed to, have that conversation with them that, hey, this is your role. You need to make those decisions. We have to dig into why you didn't make those decisions.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've learned a lot from you, but I'd like to. There's a very vital part that this conversation will not be complete without asking. Is what about? Is that basically about what you do? Then you help people out there to you share those practical tools that people could use to grow their wealth, and you help people out there to increase their financial literacy. So, I mean, for me, it's very essential that we talk about this. Like, can you share the practical tools that we could use to grow our wealth, and what do we have to do in order to become much more financial literate?
A lot of questions there. Great questions. Some things I can't answer. Some things I got to stay on compliance.
Okay.
We developed a platform that opens. It's like Robinhood opened up stock investing for people like all sizes, fractional, so you own fractions of stocks. So we did that with multifamily real estate, with private markets. So how do private markets work? So we open that up to everyone at the end of the day. And so you could own an interest in a portfolio of our assets for a fraction of the cost that normally would be. Mainly institutions do this stuff, and the barrier to entry is in hundreds of millions of dollars to do it. Doing that is one thing. You have to ask yourself, how does this benefit me? So one of the things I've learned is it's not just selling a product. How does this benefit my customer? Some people might not be ready for this because this is something that the wealthy do, the institutions do. They buy assets and they go, okay, you know what? I'm going to put this in my portfolio, park my money here, and just kind of let it grow and set it and forget it. They don't use it as a mechanism for cash flow. They use it more just to build wealth. So you got to ask yourself, does this fit your portfolio? And if you're someone who's, hey, I'm big about cash flow, the easiest way, right, is really to one, you could get a sales shop and with unlimited caps. I know a lot of people want to buy companies, but that really takes you into a skill where you have to learn how to run a company first, right, to do it. If you just buy a company, what if you buy the wrong company, right? And then you buy a company, it's like, okay, maybe it's something you can afford, and all of a sudden all the employees walk out. Now you're running a company, you have to have that skill set. So, watch out what you read for because you have to make sure you have the skills that match what you're doing at the end of the day. And each thing's kind of personalized. Where are you on your journey? So it's not what I say is going to work for you. You got to figure out, okay, I'm going to listen to Craig, I'm listening to this guy, I'm listening to that guy, and I'm going to take out what's going to work for me. And then also you want to do something that's where are you? So I call that the gap. It's like, okay, maybe I think I'm here and I'm really here, and there's a gap there. So how do I kind of develop the skills to narrow that gap? So this is where I think I am, but this is actually where I am, and how do I develop those skills? So if I'm big on cash flow, and some of the greatest the people I've known very successful, let's go with real estate. So a lot of guys who started doing a lot of development this, but they were making a cash flow for they started as maybe a realtor first or a broker. So they're always getting that fee income coming in first, and then they were an investor on the side until they got to the point where they had enough cash coming in where they could go invest full time. So it's like, where are you on your journey, and how does that work for you? And right now, there's a lot of options out there, a lot of misinformation, and I think it's great that we have these tools like Let's go back to crypto. Let's go back to new administration. It's friendly. Everyone's throwing money into crypto nowadays because they want to do what? They want to put $100 in and get $10,000. But
Yeah.
that's not practical. That's very speculative, right? So yeah, you should do that. I would do that because I think you're foolish not to take advantage of something that's hot, but I wouldn't depend upon that. So what else? So that'd be a fraction of what I do. What else do I do where I am today? What skills do I want to establish? Some of it is you might just want to get a job just to develop the skills. It's just learning. I'm going to go work for this person for a year to develop a skill I don't have so I could do the next thing. Some of it's finding a mentor. It just depends on what you want exactly at the end of the day. If you go to corporate America, you kind of get caught in that flywheel. It's so kind of siloed that you're not learning everything about a business. If that's what you want to do, that's good. And you get that steady income coming in. That's great. That's an option to do as well. I think a lot of people want to be more entrepreneurial. Then you got to surround yourself with people who are entrepreneurs at the end of the day. And surround them, learn their stories, figure out what's going to work for you. What skill set do you have? What's the easiest path for you to get there too? So again, it's like, hey, if I'm going to buy a company, I've never operated a company, I don't like talking to people. I'm not sure that's really going to work, right? Because there's a lot to it
Yeah.
when you buy a company. So if I want to manage assets and buy assets, well, you got to look at market cycles. Some perform well in certain cycles, and you might not, and some might cause you to contribute more capital to it. Maybe that's something more advanced later on. So just see where you are in your journey.
Oh yeah. Where you're on your journey. I mean, you've shared a lot of things already. Basically, how we could become wealthier, basically how we could get richer. But I know your company and your courses also help people, to guide them on the path on what to do, to make this happen. So I would like you to share our diversity fund and your other courses, help people out there to become what they want to become in terms of finance.
Yeah, I mean, DiversyFund's great. So it's you get to invest in a portfolio of assets that are multifamily properties that grow over time for a fraction of the cost. These are assets in the tens, hundreds of millions of dollars the average person can't buy. So there's fractional opportunities for you. We have a series of funds that we open up, giving people opportunities to participate into it. Got to play the long game. Depending where you buy in the market cycle, it's where you sell. So if you buy when the market's low, we sell when it's high. It's different than a stock market. There's other contributing factors to it, but over time, this asset class has outperformed the S&P 500. It's really good hedge to put your money in for people who are risk averse with other speculative investment opportunities or growth opportunities. Great for retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs. We've noticed a tremendous amount of people who love to use those vehicles or stashing money aside for the future with low growth opportunity. This is a great vehicle for something for your retirement account to put it into. It's relatively simple. So for me and how it works, but how does it fit you? So when you get into the habit of saving and your mindset is that way, then it's time to kind of look at these wealth building vehicles. That's one thing. It's just like, again, you need money. 50 to 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So building wealth might not be in their immediate minds, putting food on the table. So that's where you have to look at your position right now and make sure you have the cash to pay the bills. And as soon as you develop that and get successful at that, then just start learning how to build wealth on the side. So again, individualize. Where are you on your journey? Where is your current situation? And how do I get involved with this? If you're not involved with it and you can't do it right away, it's good to at least participate. We have educational stuff, learn about it, and you'll know when the time is right. So most people should know when that time's right. Just keep educating yourself about these vehicles and these opportunities that you have.
Yeah. Awesome. Keep educating yourself, get to know yourself. That's the thing I'm going on with from this conversation. Being authentic to yourself, be a family man, down to earth. Yeah, and keep educating yourself. But for people out there who have more questions, maybe want to, start investing with you, for example, or maybe just want to work with you in other ways. What's the best way to reach out to you and work with you?
Yeah. So for the platform, diversyfund.com, reach out there. I'm on social media, crazy on social media. My handle is CXC Cecilio, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm there. A lot of stuff on Instagram and YouTube. CXC Cecilio. Easy to find. Not a lot out there with the last name.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to place the link to your website in the show notes of this episode for anyone who is interested, in reaching out to you, and all your social media information also on your websites for them to get access to. Thank you so much, Craig. I really appreciate speaking with you. I thought we would just go deep into financial tools, but getting to know you a little bit, I found out that there's a lot of more value to you as a person. And it's also very important, in our journey of building wealth, because when we are able to work on ourselves and our leadership growth, skills and all of that, we'll surely be able to build up the wealth that we want to build for ourselves. Thank you
Uh,
so
uh,
much.
yeah, appreciate it. And a lot of the things are changing. AI is going to do a lot of the underwriting for us and stuff. It's already happening. And that's a big takeaway from people. It's more the intangibles is what you need to work on in today's world. You got to use that technology to do things that were whole positions and employees you could do, and you could do it in seconds and minutes, these things. It's happening so quickly. So I find the conversations on some of the day-to-day stuff is AI is taking over, and how does that work for you? And yeah, you gotta lean into it. You gotta start understanding how it's going to affect you. So it's really accelerating.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah. It goes very fast, technology, the way it works right now with AI. I'm amazed. Thank you so much, Craig. It was wonderful speaking with you. It was nice.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.